Hey, what's up you guys, it is Forge here and welcome back to part 3 of our thermal expansion mod review. Today we are going to be looking at the machines, well the machines we haven't looked at least, from the thermal expansion mod, and we're going to be covering them all in depth and how they work, what they do, etc. So yeah, as always, if you guys do enjoy it, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and let's get into the video. Okay guys, and as per, I'm going to be skipping some crafting recipes that I've already shown in other videos because I don't really see the point in going over them again. So if you guys want to catch those, and if you're a little confused, go check out part 1 and 2. So yeah, let's get into it. The first thing we have is this saw blade, which we are going to need one of at the moment. And that is made with a copper ingot and 6 iron ingots like so, and you get yourself a saw blade like so. And this is going to be used to make this thing called the sawmill. And this guy is made with a machine frame, redstone reception coil, 2 copper gears, 2 planks, any type of planks, and a saw blade. And this guy basically is used to make more wood out of your more planks out of your wood. So if you put in 1 oak log, you'll get 6 oak planks. It also has other uses like turning leather armor back into leather, turning wooden stuff back into wood, etc. It has a lot of uses. It can also be used to make this pulp biomass, which will be used in a later one. So these are just some of the uses it has. There are quite a few though, like that. So that's all of them. So if I come on over into this guy and throw in these oak planks, you can see it'll cut them down into oak wood, and you also get this sawdust, which will be useful for later on. But yeah, that's basically how you craft more wood out of your oak wood. Now moving on, obviously we have the gear recipe. So this one's a lead gear, and all gears are crafted the same, as I say in every video, and they are just the corresponding metal in this shape to make the gear. So this one's lead, so it takes 4 of the lead. The copper gears are the same. But the next thing we're going to make is this energetic infuser, and this guy is basically a charger from the mod. So it's made with a lead gear, a machine frame, 2 redstone transmission coils, 2 copper gears, and a redstone reception coil. And this guy essentially is a charger from the mod, so you can use it to charge things like these energy cells. You can use it to charge the flux capacitors. I know I haven't shown you guys how to craft these, we'll get to that in a later video. But yeah, this is just a charger essentially. Okay guys, the next thing we have is the Phytogenic Insulator. And this guy takes a machine frame, 2 dirt, 2 copper gears, and a redstone reception coil, and a lumium gear. We showed you how to make lumium in the last part 2 of this mod review. So this guy, basically, you're going to need this stuff called Phytogrow, and this is made obviously with sawdust, which you attain from putting the wood in the sawmill, or you can get it through other ways as well in the pulverizer by pulverizing like wooden tools or jukeboxes, etc. There's quite a few ways to get it. You guys will have to look. Also, you're going to need this stuff called niter, and niter is can be obtained from putting sandstone in a pulverizer, and you get 2 sand with a chance of niter. There are also other ways of doing it. It's not a 100% chance. You can also get it from the blitz rod, which you get from the blitz, which I showed you in the first part. But yeah, that's basically how you get niter, and also, yeah, that's basically how you get that. And you're probably going to need a fair bit of this stuff because it's one of the fuels you need for this machine. And this is crafted with slag, niter, and 2 sawdust, and that gives you 4 Phytogrow. There is also another recipe which doesn't require the sawdust, which is much nicer, and you can use pulverized coal, slag, and niter or pulverized charcoal instead of the coal to get 16 Phytogrow. And then there is better Phytogrow, which is called rich Phytogrow, and this is made with sawdust, rich slag, and niter, and this basically just has a lesser chance of being used, I believe, and that'll give you 4 of it. And then again, it has the 16 recipe once again, so you can use this rich slag, niter, and pulverized coal or charcoal, and you get 16 of the rich Phytogrow. You can also, in a fluid transposer, use this sap bucket, which I think we'll get to later on in the video, how to get this guy, with the Phytogrow to make a rich Phytogrow in the fluid transposer. And you can also make this flux Phytogrow by charging in the energetic infuser just rich Phytogrow. So if I head over to the energetic infuser here and throw in a piece of that, you'll see it'll start charging it up, and it does take a minute because apparently it does take quite a bit of energy. but it will eventually charge it into this flux phytogrow like so. So now we have the Phytogenic Insulator. One thing you're going to need is water, and you can pump in from an aqueous accumulator, or you can just fill it up manually with a bucket. And also I should mention, these guys aren't like less chance of being used when you put them in. Basically these just allow you to attain more stuff when using them. So in the Phytogenic Insulator, it's basically going to allow you to grow plants and flowers into more. So as you can see here, we got the pink tulip. If you use the phytogrow, you get 3. If you use the rich phytogrow, you get 6 for 1. And then with the fluxed, I assume you would get 9, but yeah, you would get 9 stuff. It also uses 2,400 millibuckets of water. It does use different amounts of water as well. So if I grabbed like pumpkin seeds and threw 1 in here, you'd see that this guy would process through, and it is quite a slow process, to be honest with you. And you can unlock the fertilizer slot, by the way. But eventually this will grow and will give you a pumpkin and pumpkin seeds back. And then if I use the fluxed instead of the regular, which is the best one, and we waited a minute, and as you can see, we're about to make, actually I'll get rid of that one, we're about to make 3 for 1. So that's basically the difference between the different phytogrows. Okay guys, the next thing we have is the Compactor. And this is made with a machine frame, 2 bronze ingots, 2 copper gears, 1 redstone reception coil, and 1 piston. And this guy can essentially be used to put 5 blaze powder or blizz powder, the respective one, back into their rod form. You can also use it to make these things called plates, as you can see in here. So you can make every plate of metal in the game, and this is done just by placing the ingot in the slot. And as you can see, you can make the enderium and the signalum and all that other stuff. But if I come over here, put the compactor down and throw in an iron ingot, you'll notice this thing charges up here first. You don't actually have to charge this up every time. I believe it's just when you break the machine, not even if you like change the metal in here or anything. And it does take a minute to make a plate, but there you go, and it'll make an iron plate. But the next thing we have is the centrifugal separator, and this basically separates items into their base components, basically. So we've got, to make this, we need a machine frame, 2 constantan ingots, 2 copper gears, a redstone reception coil, and a compass. And this guy can essentially separate things like electron blends, for example. So you can separate that into the silver and gold component in this thing. So if we come over into here and we look at its uses, we can separate concrete powder, the dusts that you can make from the different rods and stuff, like the pyrotheum dust. You can separate magma cream. You can also separate the signalum blend and get the destabilized redstone back from it. So yeah, there's quite a few uses for this guy. But if we go ahead and grab some of this electrum blend, you can see this will start separating these out, and it'll give the gold and the silver. Yeah, that's basically all this thing does. It's just an uncrafter, basically, for a few things. Okay guys, the next thing we have is the sequential fabricator. And this is made with a machine frame, 2 tin ingots, 2 copper gears, a redstone reception coil, and a crafting table. And this does the opposite of the centrifugal separator. It's a crafting table, so it'll basically craft items that you set the recipe for. So if I went ahead and grabbed a bunch of tin and went like that and set recipe, when I stick tin in there now, it should start crafting tin blocks. That's essentially all this thing does. It's just a auto crafter. So as you can see, it can do every crafting recipe in the game automatically. Okay guys, the next thing we have is this alchemical imbuer. And this basically works as an auto brewing stand. So we start off with a machine frame, and we get 2 hardened glass, 2 copper gears, 1 redstone reception coil, and a brewing stand, and you get yourself an alchemical imbuer. We'll come over here, we'll place it down over here, it will charge up, and we can just start off by filling it up with water. And then throw in some nether wart, and it'll start making an awkward potion over here. And then you can output that through the fluid ducts added by this mod, which we'll get into in a later thing. Or you can just put another one directly next to it, and you can have it input from this side, like so, and this side output. So it'll go into that, and we get the awkward potion. And then we could, I don't know, I can't actually remember how to make potions, but I guess if we grab a pufferfish, we can make a water breathing potion, I guess. So that'll start going across into that, and then that, and then you can put these into a fluid transposer and bottles in, and basically it'll just fill the potion into the bottle. And that's essentially all this guy does. Okay guys, so the next thing we're going to need to craft is this tome of knowledge. And this basically allows you to store XP in a book. So this is crafted with a book, 2 emeralds, and 2 lapis. And essentially to make this thing work, you can either hold shift while sneaking to retrieve the stored knowledge. So if I hold shift, I can right click and extract from this thing, or if I press V on it, it'll actually collect XP in a specific area. So if I go ahead and throw this down, all the levels are coming in, but they're not actually going up in my level bar. They are actually going into the book here. So if you notice, it says experience 387. So then if we come over to this fluid transposer and set it to empty, it will give us this stuff called essence of knowledge for the levels, and it's like 1000 buckets for 100 experience. So yeah, as you can see, we've got a bit of essence knowledge here, and we're going to need that for the next bit of the thing, and that is for this arcane insulator. And this is basically a enchantment table, kind of like a custom enchantment table. So you make this with a machine frame, 2 lapis blocks, 2 constantan gears, a redstone reception coil, and an enchantment table. And if I go ahead and put this guy next to him, if I set this to output the liquid here, and set this guy on input here, you'll notice it takes in the essence of knowledge buckets. And I can use this guy basically with a book and some type of item here to give me different enchantments, as you can see. And they use different amounts of the essence knowledge. So if I took like a nether star and a book, I could get mending and combine these guys together. Yeah, so it's very slow, and it'll eventually make me a mending book. And the next thing we have is the glacial precipitator, and that is made with a machine frame, 2 invar ingots, 2 copper gears, a redstone reception coil, and a piston. And if I take this guy and place him here, this guy does require power. It also requires water. So yeah, if I go ahead and fill him up, you can also pipe it in, obviously, from the aqueous accumulator. You'll see we can make snowballs with the water, we can make snow, we can make ice. It takes a bit more water for different operations, but yeah, you can make lots of different things, and you can make these snow layers, you can make packed ice, and that's all you can make. But yeah, that's essentially what this thing's used for. The next thing we have is the igneous extruder, and that is made with a machine frame, 2 invar ingots, a redstone reception coil, 2 copper gears, and a piece of glass. And this is basically used to make different stones. So you need to fill this thing up with water and lava, which you can obviously pipe in, and it can make cobblestone, stone, obsidian, granite, diorite, andesite, but this doesn't actually use either of them. If I went into the stone, it would actually start using the water up, as you can see. If I go into the obsidian, it'll start using the lava up, but not the water, like so. But this does use power. This uses water as well as the andesite and the diorite. But that's essentially what this thing does. Okay guys, the next thing we have is the nullifier, and this basically gets rid of things. So this takes a device frame, a redstone servo, 2 iron gears, 2 bricks, and 1 lava bucket. And this doesn't need any power or anything. Essentially, it's only got an input, and you just throw things in, or you can pipe things in, and it removes them from existence. And the next thing we have is this thermal mediator, and this basically improves the operational speed of adjacent blocks, so it speeds them up essentially. And this is made with a device frame, a redstone servo, 2 iron gears, 2 invar ingots, and 1 copper ingot. And this guy can use either water or this stuff called gelid cryotheum. And this is basically crafted using the cryotheum now. It's crafted with a you need this blizz powder first, and you can get this either through crafting and you'll get 2, or you can stick them in a pulverizer and get 4 blizz powder plus a chance of a snowball. And then using that, you can craft this stuff called cryotheum dust, and that's crafted with a snowball, redstone, and 2 blizz powder, and you get cryotheum dust. Then to get this gelid cryotheum, you place the cryotheum dust in a magma crucible, and this will give you 250 millibuckets of the gelid cryotheum. And then obviously you can put it in a fluid transposer and bucket it up with 1000 millibuckets, and then we can use this in the actual thermal mediator. So if we come into here and we place gelid cryotheum in here, you'll see that basically it makes this thing more efficient. So if I grabbed oak logs and stuck those in now, it'll make this thing go faster. So if I go ahead and remove this, you'll notice it goes a bit slower, but if I stick this in, it goes a bit faster. So that's essentially all this guy does. Okay guys, the next thing we have is this item allocator, and this essentially works as an item buffer basically. And this basically is crafted with a device frame, 2 tin ingots, 2 iron gears, 1 redstone servo, and 1 chest. And if we come over here, you can pipe items in from the different inputs and outputs. So it would be inputting from this side and outputting through there. and you can choose the amount of items that come in versus the number of items that come out. So say you wanted a backup of items while you're making them, you could make this like, I don't know, you could have like 64 items coming in at a time and only 4 going out at the same time, so you'd eventually build up a backup of items in the system. And basically with these, when you click this button, it'll decrease it by 16 without pressing anything else. If you press shift, it'll increase it up to 64 straight away or down by 64 straight away. If you press control, it'll do it by 4 each time. And if you hold control and right click down, it'll do it by 1 each time as well. But yeah, that's basically all this thing is. It's kind of like an item buffer, so you can kind of back up your items in the system. And then we have this fluid allocator, which basically is a fluid buffer, and that is made with a device frame, 2 copper ingots, a redstone servo, 2 iron gears, and a piece of glass. This guy basically is the same, so obviously it has a certain amount of fluids. You can also lock fluids in, so you can specify what fluids you want going through this specific system. That's also a use of this, so you can like have a backup of items so you know which items are going through this thing. And yeah, you have an input and output obviously, and you can increase how much fluid comes in and out and all that like this. Basically it's exactly the same but for fluids. The next thing we have is this insightful condenser, and this basically collects experience in an area. So this is crafted with a device frame, 2 gold ingots, a tome of knowledge, a redstone servo, and 2 iron gears. So this insightful condenser basically collects XP in a 5x5x5 area around it. So if I go ahead and throw it XP down, you'll see it'll collect it and it'll convert it to essence of knowledge, which basically does by just converting the XP orbs into it. If you want to increase the amount of essence of knowledge produced per XP orb, you can use these 3 items. So this will increase it by 1.5 times, so it'll basically double your output of it. This will increase it by 2 times, and this mana dust, which is not currently obtainable in the game, will increase it by 2.5 times. So if I throw that down, we will get a lot more experience, essence of knowledge per XP orb, basically. Okay guys, the next thing we have is the Forge Lexicon. And this guy is crafted with a book, a gold ingot, an iron ingot, a lapis lazuli, and a redstone. And essentially what this guy does is it will convert different metals from different mods. So if you had like mechanism tin and thermal expansion tin, you could set a preference and convert it into basically the correct version of the one you wanted. So you could turn mechanism tin into thermal expansion tin. And that's essentially all this guy is used for. It's basically like an ore dictionary book. And there is a block form of this, of course, the lexical transmuter, so you can automate things like this. So we have this is crafted with a device frame, a redstone servo, and 2 iron gears, a lead ingot, and a forged lexicon. And the inventory looks like this basically, so you can input and output, you can set the specified thing you'd like. So if you wanted thermal expansion tin, you'd put thermal expansion tin in here and you pipe mechanism tin in and it would output thermal expansion tin essentially. So the next thing we're going to need to craft is this thing called a mob, and this basically allows you to capture mobs. So this is made with an ender pill, a slime ball, a soul sand, and a slag, and this will give you 1 mob empty. Well, yeah. And basically you can use it to capture mobs. So if I have this down and I throw that at him, it will catch him in my mob, and then I can release him by throwing it down. So you can also automate this with a creature encapsulator, which basically captures mobs. And this is crafted with a device frame, 2 constantan ingots, 2 iron gears, 1 redstone servo, and a dispenser. And you can place this guy down. It has an input, output, and stuff. And you can put this down and it will basically just capture anything in an area. So as you can see, it now captured a husk in that mob, and that's essentially what it does. The next thing we have is this vacuumulator, and this is made with a device frame, 2 tin ingots, 2 iron gears, a redstone servo, and a hopper. And essentially this thing collects items in a 5x5 area, much like our insightful condenser here. So if I threw down an item here, it would pick it up and put it in its inventory, and that's essentially what this thing does, and it only has an output. So yeah, that's all it does. Okay guys, next we're going to need this stuff called aqua chow, and this is going to basically work as bait in the machine we're about to make. and this is made with a slime ball, a sawdust, and a piece of bread, and that'll give you 4 aqua chow. And then we can also make this rich aqua chow, and this is made with a sawdust, a bread, a nether wart, and a slime ball, or a rosin, which we'll get to in a minute because we're going to cover that in a minute. And this will give you 4 rich aqua chow. And then we have this flux aqua chow, which is basically rich aqua chow in an energetic infuser. So now we're going to be making this aquatic entangler, and this is basically an auto fisher. So this is made with a device frame, 2 iron bars, a fishing rod, 2 iron gears, and a redstone servo. And you must place this actually in a body of water. And this guy does actually have to be placed in at least a 5x5x2 area, and it will start then automatically fishing, and you can tell that by the fact it has a fishing hook in it, and it'll just start catching fish essentially, eventually. No idea when. It does have speed multipliers, so if it's placed in a river biome, it is ×2 speed. If it's placed in an ocean biome, it's ×3 speed. If it's surrounded by water, 10 to 20 blocks, and raining, it's ×2. If it's surrounded by 20 to 30 water blocks, it's ×2. If it's surrounded by 20 to 30 water blocks and raining, it's ×3. If it's surrounded by 30 or more water blocks, it's ×3, and 30 or more water blocks and raining is ×4. Plus also you can put this aqua chow in, so this will produce at ×2 for the normal aqua chow, ×3 for the rich aqua chow, and ×4 for the flux aqua chow. And the next thing we have is this decorative diffuser, and this basically spreads potions in an area essentially. This is made with a device frame, 2 silver ingots, a hardened glass, 2 iron gear, and a redstone servo. And if we go ahead and place this guy down, you have to put the liquid form of the potion in. So if it's just a regular potion, it's a 9x9 area, a 9x9x9 area. If it's a splash potion, it's a 13x13x13 area, and if it's a lingering potion, it's a 17x17x17 area. And it will basically spread the potion effect every 60 ticks or 3 seconds. After it's activated by a redstone signal, or you can turn that off, and it consumes 50 millibuckets of potion per cycle. And also every potion effect, basically the time will be 1/4 of the normal time, but you can boost this with the redstone, which will basically double the time for 15 cycles per redstone, and the glowstone, which will double the potency for 15 cycles per thing. So we can go ahead and stick this in here, and it'll just spread potion effect. Obviously this is just a potion bucket, and it'll use 50 millibuckets per thing. You can also stick redstone in, which will basically have the ×2 duration, so it will last longer essentially. Or you can put the glowstone in, which will have the ×2 potency, and that's essentially all this guy does. And now we have the factorizer, which basically splits and can combine items. So this is made with a device frame, 2 lead ingots, 2 iron gears, 1 redstone servo, and a crafting table. And essentially, if we place this guy down here, we have the mode combine, which if we had, like, I don't know, let's grab some constantan ingots and put them in there, it would turn it into blocks of constantan. And then if we put it into split and put the blocks in here, it would actually split it back down into the constantan ingot. Or you could put the constantan ingots in here, and it would split them down into the nuggets. And that's essentially what this thing does. And then also you can do it backwards, obviously, with the nuggets back into the ingot. And that's essentially all this thing does. And I did say we were going to get to the sap and the resin and the rosin, and I left these 2 things to last because they're kind of the most complicated ones here. So we have this thing called the arboreal extractor, and I'm going to kind of try and go into depth with this. So the arboreal extractor is made with a device frame, 2 oak planks, 2 iron gears, a redstone servo, and a copper ingot. And this thing is basically used, you place it up against a tree and it extracts fluid from a tree. And different trees will give different things. So if you placed it up against a oak or dark oak tree, it would give you sap. And if you placed it against any of these trees here, it would give you resin. And sap essentially is used for many things. It's used for making fuels. It's used obviously to upgrade your phytogrow as well. And then the resin is more useful because it's actually used to make this thing called rosin. To make that, you're going to need machine frame, 2 glass, 2 constantan gears, a redstone reception coil, and a nickel gear. And essentially what this guy does is you put the resin bucket in here, like so, in the fractionating still. 200 millibuckets will give you 100 millibuckets of tree oil, which will also be useful later on, but we'll get more into that. And a 50% chance of getting this rosin, which you can use in crafting recipes. It's also a fuel. and it can be used in place of slime balls in quite a lot of places as well, so it's quite useful for that. So I'm going to show you how to set one of these things up real quick. So the first thing you'll notice is this doesn't actually work just up against spruce wood, so you can't just place it next to the thing you want, and also it does have a little booster thing, so you can put items in it to boost it. But you do actually have to put this guy against a tree and it will start extracting fuel, and by fuel I mean resin. And also the speedy uppy things are actually the phytogrow, so you can put these in to actually speed up the operations of this guy, and it will start extracting quicker. This will do ×4, this guy will. The rich phytogrow will do ×3, and the normal phytogrow will do ×4. So as you notice, this is going a lot quicker. So if I go ahead and output out of the side of this arboreal extractor now, and I put a fractionating still next to it, and take input from that side, and then just get an energy cell. Let me charge this guy up real quick. So as you can see now, there's some resin in there. If I stick this guy here and have it output power into here, you'll notice that this thing will actually start processing and making the tree sap in here, and then we have a 50% chance essentially of getting the rosin, and I'm hoping one does come through this time. No, of course it didn't, but we did get some tree oil. So yeah, that's essentially how this system works. So yeah, I think I've covered everything now, and I hope you guys did find this useful. I hope you did enjoy it, and yeah, if you did, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in part 4.